Peter Neuenhausen is the Director of Future-Proof Supply Chains at Akzo Nobel. They're the coatings and chemicals conglomerate, as you know, focusing on long-term raw materials and supply chain strategies. He's also a member of SUSCAM. I actually knew Peter when he was with Arthur D. Little. He's also an author. He wrote a book called Simply Strategy, the shortest route to the best strategy, and I'm a proud owner of that. So it's a...
I gave it to you.
I know. He's charged, he's been charged before, David. Anyway, it's my pleasure to please welcome Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, James. Thank you, Bio, for inviting us here. Particularly today. Today is April 30th, and as some of you may know, that's actually Queen's Day in the Netherlands. Queen's Day is the Dutch equivalent of 4th of July, which means I'm missing all the fun. I heard it was a very beautiful sunny day. Everybody's outside, so it better be good. Again, pleasure to be here. Timing is very good for us because we just concluded about 6 to 8 weeks ago our renewables strategy, which I will therefore explain to you. A few facts about Akzo Nobel, largest coatings company in the world, very interesting chemical portfolio to decide. We're very proud of that because coatings is actually the area where chemicals are being turned into customer products. So it's very interesting to be playing at that interface. On the one hand, we need to be very knowledgeable about what our customers' needs. We need to be very efficient in marketing. On the other hand, we need to know very well where do we get our chemicals from. So it's an interesting interface that we're at. Revenue today is about 16 billion, 55,000 employees. Profitability is still a bit of a challenge. We haven't fully come out of the financial crisis yet, and the housing sector, where obviously a lot of our products are going, is still struggling somewhat. But a very nice split across the world. We're very proud of rapid growth in emerging markets, which you really want to be with a product like this to capture number 1, number 2, number 3 positions in those markets. And then you'll see a split of our company actually in 3 pieces. I already mentioned the chemicals bit, which is approximately 1/3. We've got a decorative paint, which is really the paint that you would be buying in stores, bit, which is also 1/3. And then we've got an area which we call performance coatings, where you see paints like protective or aerospace coatings or carbon finishes. On the left, a couple of our brands. For those here in North America, you recognize Glidden. In Europe, we're more known, as well as in Asia, for Dulux and Sikkens. Our strategic ambition is to be the world's leading coatings and specialty chemicals company. I already told you that we believe this interface of being able to manage both a chemicals portfolio at the same time with a coatings portfolio that's directed at end consumers is very interesting. We're running with something that we call value and values. The bit on the left you recognize, typical company ambitions. We want to grow to about 20 billion, we want to make a particular return. The stuff on the right is probably a little more interesting. We've got sustainability really embedded at all layers throughout the company, from top to bottom. Sustainable growth is what we believe in, and that is also why it is interesting to work with partners like DSM, who have a very similar mindset. Where we do differ from many is that we've got to keep a very keen eye on the requirements of the global mid-market. So as we are growing and building our sales in emerging markets, that is where the global mid-market is, and that global mid-market has a certain amount of money to spend. That also means that if we look at sustainability, it's always going to be a combination of a win-win, trying to beat the cost, trying to lower the cost, as well as trying to lower our eco footprint. The good news is, so far, wherever we look, this can be done. I think this morning we've also heard some of these messages very clearly. We can get succinic acid competitive or cheaper than the fossil material. We are looking at adipic acid to be cheaper, competitive compared to fossil material. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do in the coming 5 years and in the coming 10 years that will be one of those win-wins. But it's good to keep it in mind because it's very, very important for us. You cannot afford, when you're competing in those markets, to actually increase our cost base. We're already amongst the most renewable companies in the world, and you'll see two aspects of this. On the left-hand side, the percentage of renewable chemicals that we already procure in our portfolio, and on the right-hand side, our energy consumption. Let's look left first. If you take a look at the industry average of renewable chemicals that are already in the market, keep in mind this is things that we've already been doing for probably over 50 years. The oils and the fats, rubbers, the cellulose derivatives, some enzyme-based conversions. You're actually looking at about 3% of global chemical sales that we can already classify as renewable. The bits that we are talking about in meetings like this is actually captured in the zero, which is not zero, of course, as you all know, but it's about 0.4, 0.3% of global chemical industry sales. That's the bit that is, of course, growing very fast. That's what we are interested in to talk about with DSM and with others. If you then take the renewable piece that we are already procuring, and keep in mind, we've got a big coatings business. Coatings traditionally was already based on renewable molecules like the alkyds. We've also got a big surfactants chemicals business, which is, of course, buying oils and fats. And we are at about 9%. So tallow, soybean oil, cellulose, alkyd resins, those are things that we are already buying today. We think this is a perfect jumping off platform to go further with the new renewables. On the right-hand side, we're also a very significant consumer of energy, not so much in the coatings area. Coatings is mixing and stirring, and then filling cans of paint, not very energy intensive. But we've got a business making chlorine, we've got a business making paper bleaching chemicals, very intensive, energy intensive. If you then look at the electricity that we're sourcing already, 40% of that is renewable. Water, biomass, and wind. So it's a good start to look at a renewable chemicals strategy. The drivers for us to look here are actually threefold. First of all, supply. We all know supply of renewable chemicals is growing rapidly, and many of these materials are becoming cost competitive. And the driver for us is actually to see whether amongst those materials there are those that would provide an alternative source of supply. So if you look in our supply chain, and we'll get a little more detail shortly, but there are specific pressure points in the chemical industry supply chains, like propylene, like xylene, like adipic, where we would prefer to have additional options in order to gain some flexibility and keep costs under control. Second element, you recognize that one too, demand. There's a continued drive to improve sustainability with increasing customer demand and company focus. Always here you get into that discussion, is it green with a premium or is it green without a premium? We think it is both. However, our business is really dictated by those people that will not very rapidly pay a premium. So the driver for Akzo Nobel is to strengthen our position as the leading coatings player, including the fact that we're betting very significantly on sustainability becoming more important. Third element, carbon footprint. We've also heard that a couple of times this morning. There's an increasing focus on emission reduction. We've got a very firm target to reduce our emissions by 2050. We want to actually increase the efficiency of carbon by 10%. So this and these materials should contribute towards realizing our sustainability targets. Let me give you a quick insight in what our supply chain looks like. On the left-hand side, you see a bar. And it says there's 16, which is 60 million tons of CO2 that we are emitting. And then on the bottom, that is the stuff that we are emitting, gate to gate by our plants. But you immediately see that in the upstream, i.e. raw materials that we buy mostly for our coatings operations, that's actually the bigger bit. And where does that come from? Well, if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see 4 and then 2 platforms that are the resin and the latex platforms. The resin and latexes are the heart of any paint. We've got 4 of those for our decorative paint business: full acrylic, styrene acrylic, vinyl acrylic, and VAE. And then 2 in the performance coatings, epoxies and polyester. And of course, if you follow this back all the way to natural gas and oil, you'll see that there are a couple of points where actually we can think about adding renewables into the chain. So we mentioned acetone, which is converted into MMA, which is then converted into full acrylic, which we might buy. You have a butanol, you have an epichlorohydrin, which goes to epoxy, you have terephthalic acid, which goes into polyester. Also an interesting observation, there is nothing that we buy directly for our paints that we can green. We will always have to take 1 step or even 2 or 3 steps back into our value chain to make sure that our products and that our paints will become more renewable, will become more sustainable. So I like very much, James, your picture about the pooling in the supply chain. We believe this is the model and this is the way to go if you want to make a step forward. When we developed our renewables strategy, we've looked at 3 kinds of materials. First of all, the drop-ins have been mentioned before. So there's a fossil molecule, and is there a renewable molecule that can fit that precisely? No change is necessary in our formulations. Then there are chemical conversions. You'll be taking one raw material, convert it into a product that we sell. And here is a chemical conversion, and are there perhaps any enzymatic routes that do the same thing? And then thirdly, novel formulation materials, so something that can replace a full acrylic, that can replace a polyester, but it is not a drop-in, but it will impart the same functionality onto our paints. Often quite a bit of a challenge. Our products are of course formulated over the course of many decades, so if you take a completely new molecule or a polymer to replace the polyester, to replace the epoxy, you're probably looking at reformulating that application completely, sometimes doing very long testing. Some of our tests will last as long as 5 to 10 minutes. We've taken those, we've done a scan of what all of you are working on at the moment. And we've taken that through 2 steps, a screening matrix to create a long list. Essentially, this is about how much impact would such a material have in Akzo Nobel, and how successful do we think that material can be within the next 5 years. And then we've further detailed that to come to the short list. Having done that, the following strategy emerged. We will make a proactive effort to lead deployment of selected bio-based chemicals in our core markets and applications. So we want to be almost like the partner of choice for you who believe you have a molecule that can be successful in paints and coatings. A couple of things to mention. We will leverage your innovation rather than develop ourselves, and we will focus on the development of the application of renewables in coatings. So we believe we know pretty well how you make a good coating. If you believe you know how to make a particular renewable chemical, then I think we have a good match. It's also good to say, after looking at this area for 5 months, we believe we should not be the ones to actually develop the chemicals themselves. We will focus on cost competitive and high impact areas for the reasons indicated. It has to be cost competitive for us to serve our overall strategic goal, which is to be able to serve that global mid-market. And then of course we will look, especially initially, at where we can make the biggest change in the coming years. Work across the supply chain. As I said, there is no or very little renewable chemicals that we buy directly, and therefore we should work with you and find